I was double checking all the video links. Only one was broken. Woo! Means I chose non-scandalous videos. It's just hilarious because obviously nothing I'm showing is sexually super scandalous. All right, so for folks who are here in person, I do have your exam too, so I will come around with those. Folks on Zoom, just the next time you're here in person, you will get it back. And these are literally amenable. So they're probably in the order I picked them up after I dropped them. That's what it is. There we go. So yeah, people did well on this in general on these exams. When people don't do well, it's because they didn't actually do something, like they skipped questions and things like that. So I was really happy to see folks were really engaging with the material, and I especially enjoy reading your short answers. I think you all are really getting it. One of the things we'll do this week is do a little more review on APA style, just because that trips some people up, particularly the citation and reference part. But other than that, in general, people did really, really well. So I am thrilled. This may not be the case for every professor, but I actually do not like to fail people. So it's always nice when people are doing well. The average was a 93. And then there were 2 people who just didn't turn it in. So if you added in their zeros, then it was an 83. So. Alrighty, but today what we're going to do is start talking about integrity and psychological thought. Nope, no, we're not. Wrong lecture. Sorry, guys. I think we're on Why Do They Do What They Do. No, it is integrity and social psychological thought. Okay, good. Look at me go. I just don't have it printed out in my notes, which is fine because pretty much everything I need to say is up here. It's nothing like confusing yourself first thing on Monday morning. And so one of the things that happens a lot in psychology, and brilliant people do this, really smart people in psychology will do what we call me search. And me search is where you study something because you've had personal experience with it, and you're interested in it for that reason. And it doesn't have to be bad at all, right? Where it becomes problematic is when you let your personal experience influence your beliefs over and above what the data is actually showing you, right? Our personal experience can be distorted. We can be misled, as we've learned about already throughout this semester, right? And a lot of times, this happens and we don't even realize it. It throws us off guard. We think we're doing everything right. We think we're safe. And then you get a text at 1 a.m. that someone stole your credit card. This happened to me over the weekend, unfortunately. And luckily my bank caught it and didn't let any of the charges go through, right? But our world is not as idyllic as we'd like it to be, right? We've talked a little bit about illusions already in here, but I am going to play a video that shows a little bit more about illusions. There we go.
This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Okay, take a look.
Give me just a sec. Yep. Someone who teaches in here likes to turn down the speakers instead of the volume on YouTube. And I don't know why. There we go.
Look at this optical illusion. Are the lines parallel or not? What about this one? Is the black line a continuation of the red line or the blue line? Or if it's misaligned, which direction does it have to move to be in line with the red one? These are examples of geometrical optical illusions, namely the Zollner and Poggendorff illusions. The Zollner illusion is made up of diagonal lines. They are parallel, but they're crossed with shorter lines that alternate between horizontal and vertical. The angles of these shorter lines give the impression that the diagonal lines are not parallel. In the Poggendorff illusion, we have a tendency to misestimate the unknown angles hidden by the rectangle. The acute angles have an effect of us over-predicting the position of the line. Many of us are tricked by looking at these images, and for centuries we thought that perceptual illusions just involved the visual system. But people who have been blind since birth can be tricked by these illusions too. In a classic 1938 study, an experimental psychologist mounted raised versions of the Poggendorff, Zollner and Mueller-Lyer illusions on veneer plyboard. When participants who were blind since birth touched the illusions and explored them haptically, almost all experienced the Poggendorff and Mueller-Lyer illusions, and about half were tricked by the Zollner illusion. When sighted participants only touched the illusions, there was no effect. But when the sighted participants looked at the illusions, they were tricked by them too. For people who were blind, they could feel the illusions that others see and still be tricked by them. And over time, with more participants and more accurate ways of running these experiments, researchers found that many visual illusions exist in a tactile mode. Take the Mueller-Lyer illusion. Do you think the lines are the same length, or are they different? For sighted people, some suggest this illusion prompts perceptual differences in depth, and in people who are blind, many have difficulty in separating where the straight line ends and where the arrows begin, leading to an overestimation or underestimation of the straight line. In many studies, this illusion has tricked participants who are both blind and sighted. There are perceptual processes common in both vision and touch, but there are some differences too. Take a look at this image. Are the yellow lines the same length or different? Mario Ponzo, an Italian psychologist, suggested that our minds judge an object's size based on its background. That is, when you can see an object. In numerous studies, the Ponzo illusion hasn't been found in touch in those who are blind, which means a different perceptual process is underlying the illusion. It's thought the Ponzo illusion is dependent on our impression of linear perspective, which isn't universally present in those blind since birth. Of course, people who are blind can learn about these principles of perspective, just as sighted people do. But research suggests they may not spontaneously use these cues in interpreting raised line drawings. Studying haptic perception in blind, vision impaired, and sighted people can help us better understand the sense of touch and improve the design of things like raised maps, accessible money, and even haptic feedback on our phones. And in addition to that, now you can see there's more to the humble illusion than first meets the eye. This episode is brought to you by.
And so if you're not aware, the haptic feedback on your phone is when it kind of vibrates when you touch it. Some people will turn that off. I have it off on my phone, but some people really like that. It's like almost like we are pressing a keyboard key, right? Like you get a little tactile stimulation when you do that. But as you can see, our sight isn't always perfect for people who are not sighted. Their sense of touch is not always perfect. And so that becomes something that can be a little trickier for folks to trust their senses on once you start seeing this stuff, right? So sometimes psychology students, particularly that take like abnormal psych, what we now call adult psychopathology, will get what we call med student syndrome, which is where you think you have everything you learn about, right? And some people will be like, oh my gosh, my perception's all screwed up. No, these are just made to screw up your perception, right? We think about illusions only in terms of sightedness, I think, a lot of the times, but it can happen auditorily as well.
Many of us have become quick to catch illusions that trick our eyes, but how often do you consider illusions of the ear? Are you really able to trust your ears and the things they hear? For example, listen to Greg speaking.
Bar, 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 bar.
What do you hear? If you heard bar, 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 you'd be right. But how about now?
Bar, 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 bar.
Chances are you heard far, far, far this time with an F, except you didn't. In fact, the audio didn't even change between the two videos.
Bar, bar, bar.
Strange as it may seem, what you hear depends on which video you're looking at. Go ahead, take turns watching each video and see how the sound morphs.
Bar, bar, bar.
This is a perfect example of something called the McGurk effect, which shows how our visuals can alter what we believe we're hearing. Now I want you to count how many times you see a circle flash on screen. Let's do that one more time. Did you see it flash twice? Many people do, yet without the sound, it becomes clear that the circle is only flashing once. In this case, the sound has altered your perceived vision. The next one works best with other people around. I'll play two tones, and you tell me if they're ascending or descending. In other words, are the notes played from low to high or high to low? Listen to this. Which was it? How about this one? Write down what you heard for each number and let us know in the comments. Chances are, if you compare with enough people, you'll all have different answers. Surprising? Try some more. And this one. How is it possible that you're hearing something different from others? It's an auditory illusion called the tritone paradox. It's created in such a way that the tones contain both a higher and lower frequency in them, but our brains have a preference of which to listen to. Diana Deutsch, the creator of this illusion, found that your geography and language from infancy all play a role in deciding this preference. Finally, listen to this audio clip of a gradually climbing tune. And yet, if I play the exact same clip back to you, it will sound like it's only continuing to climb higher and higher. I swear this is the exact same clip I just played. You can rewind that section of this video over and over and check for yourself. Try it. Each time you start it over, the tune is seemingly climbing even higher. It's called the Shepard tone illusion, of which there are many variations. In it, multiple sine waves are played on top of one another, raising in pitch, while one quickly drops down an octave as the others continue rising. But our brain doesn't notice this drop, and so the clips sound like they're rising forever. These illusions may help to explain how something like music can have such a profound yet varying effect on our minds, which we discuss in our new ASAP Thought episode here, along with the question of whether or not music can save your life. There's a link in the description to watch it. So, do you still trust your ears? Got a burning?
I mean, I would say most of us do, right? But it is sort of interesting to think about this, and it explains why we mishear other people sometimes, right? And also why music can resonate with some people and not others. So illusions are sensory, right? They're based in whatever sense we're experiencing them through. Although, as you saw with the bar far illusion, it also incorporates other senses, right? I know that they're saying the same thing, but if I look at the bar video, I hear bar. If I look at the far video, I hear far. But they're also, as they were pointing out in these videos, perceptual and cognitive. So you're, in addition to getting the sensory input, right, you're also interpreting it through these perceptual and cognitive processes. And this influences not only our understanding of that particular moment, instant, sensation, but also our future experiences or predictions based on sort of what we store in our memory, what we pull from the next time we encounter that again. So one of these that's like a very famous study is on inattentional blindness or change blindness.
The Door Study. This video shows a participant from a 1998 study by Daniel Simons and Daniel Levin. Watch what happens as the unsuspecting pedestrian provides directions. The young man on the left is one of the experimenters. He has approached the white-haired man and asked for directions. Watch closely as two people carrying a door pass between them, and the first experimenter is replaced by someone else. Like many of the people in this study, the pedestrian was entirely unaware that he was talking to a different person. Approximately 50% of the people approached in this study didn't notice when the person they were talking to was replaced by someone else. This study was among the first to demonstrate that change blindness can occur outside of the laboratory. This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Daniel.
And they've done variations of this. So like these were both white guys, right? About the same age, about the same hair, right? But they've done research where they switch them out with like someone of a different gender, someone of a different race, and like people notice it more often, but they don't always notice it. And it's just partially because if you notice after the door went through, the pedestrian was only looking at the map, right? And like pointing things out on the map. And the other issue is if you expect things to say the same, right? There's no reason why you would expect the person you're trying to give directions to change, right? Then your brain just says, yeah, this is the same, no biggie, right? And so I like that this one has some of the original footage. I've seen sort of news shows do funny mock-ups of this before as well. All right, I think we might have talked about inattentional blindness before, but it's still fun to watch this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
Most of the time, our vision does a wonderful job, but there's a limit to how much our brains can cope with. So we just pay attention to one thing at a time, and we're blind to the rest.
The brain has a huge amount of information being delivered to it by the eyes. It has to make a decision. It has to decide where to place its attention, what information it should scrutinize, what information it should ignore.
And like an important part of that, right, is that at any given moment, the brain is not only getting information from the eyes, right? It's also getting information from the ears, from the touch sensations, from your nose, your mouth, right? All kinds of things are going on all at once. And so the brain really has to decide what to pay attention to. And they think in some disorders like schizophrenia, part of what might be going on is like the brain struggles to know what to focus on. It doesn't like filter things out.
To test just how much we ignore, we've asked Richard Wiseman and the London Towers basketball team to try out an experiment designed by scientists at Harvard University. The idea is simple but silly. We film the team practicing, and then this happens. Surely no one would miss that. We get a group of people together, and Richard briefs them to watch the screen without letting on what they're being tested for.
So this is an experiment. It's a battle of the sexes, men against women. There'll be a difference, but I'm not going to say which way round it's going to be. And it's just a simple observation test. All you need to do...
And just like heads up, this is a deception. There is no sex difference in this ability. He is just trying to really motivate people, because if you tell people like, we're going to show who's better, men or women, they like really focus in because they want their sex to win.
Is you'll see there are 3 guys in yellow here, and they have a basketball, and it's your job to count the number of times they throw the basketball to each other. Now, to make things slightly harder, there's also 3 guys in blue tracksuits. But you ignore them, ignore their basketball, and just concentrate on this one. So if we can run the tape. Okay, so that's number 1.
Crucially, the volunteers are told to count how many times the yellow team passes the ball. But will that be enough to make them miss the gorilla? So did they see anything?
Okay, if we can stop the tape there for the moment. So how many basketball throws? 20? Any more than others? 21? Okay. Okay, be honest here. Anybody notice anything a little bit unusual? Be honest. Okay, it's just about 4 or 5 of you. Excellent. The rest of you not notice anything strange, honest? Okay. Right. For you guys, enjoy this moment. When the first time I saw this, it completely threw me. Now I want you to watch the tape again, but this time just watch it as you would a normal piece of television. No counting the basketball, anything like that. If we can have the tape.
Time to show them what they missed.
Here it comes.
Because they were all concentrating on counting, their brains just didn't register the gorilla.
I'm absolutely shocked. I can't believe it. I was so proud of myself as well because I got all 20. And I was so busy concentrating on it that I didn't...
Kind of embarrassed. I thought I'd spot a monkey walking across the middle of the screen.
I was completely astounded. It was just kind of like when he did the kind of like that, I was just absolutely amazed. I was gobsmacked, I'd say. It's kind of, I can't believe, and saying they might have probably switched the video or something like that. I can't believe that you could miss something that obvious.
That's really bizarre. It's freaked me out a bit.
And so our eyes can betray us, right? Our senses can betray us. And this is another change bias study that was done in more of a lab setting here. not even a sip. You just get a cupcake.
Oh, yeah.
I think if nothing else, this teaches us that we shouldn't be giving you all participation points in class. We should be giving you cupcakes and then you'll participate in our studies. I like that they're upper level psych students, so they're like, oh, you're doing that thing. But yeah, even if you know it's a thing, you might not notice it, right? Because again, if you're focused on something else like the cupcakes, you're not expecting it to switch out. And what I liked about this example is like, they were not wearing anything remotely alike, right? Like, yes, they were both white girls, right? But like one had on a giant hoodie and the other one just had on a white tank top. And so like, if nothing else, you think people would notice the clothing difference, because that's actually a little bit of a problem about, say, like eyewitness testimony. If people do tend to notice what someone's wearing over and above like what they actually look like. And of course, what they're wearing is one of the easiest things for them to change, right? All right, so what does your book say is the antidote to this? So to overcome the limitations of personal experience, we need to focus on our expectations and also on the fact that people cannot multitask. Everyone loves to tell you you can multitask. I remember I worked at Kohl's in high school and college. I was a cashier and then I did customer service. And they love to give this little like personality questionnaire. How good are you at multitasking? Well, people can multitask. We can't actually multitask. What we do is just job switch really, 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 really fast, right? It means that you're not doing either thing well, per se, right? So like if you're watching TV and especially reading, you might be able to do something like math problems or something, right? But like you're not really following either as well as you would be. Yeah, feeling. Yeah, it's a little bit of that, right? I mean, you can train yourself to do that, right? It's been a minute. There we go. But yeah, it's a little bit of that like whenever we divide our attention, we're not very good at it, right? Unless we train ourselves to do it. And even if we try to train ourselves to multitask, well, the human brain can only do so, right? Yeah, definitely. And so when an event seems weird, right? So someone switches out who's giving you the cupcake, or you're watching a magician, right? And sometimes it's like, how do you explain these things, right? There was a show, I want to say like in the 90s or early 2000s, where like a magician wore a mask and like revealed how they do a lot of the big tricks. And the whole magic industry was up in arms. Like, how dare this person? Because you didn't know who it was because they were anonymous, right? But like, it doesn't make the magic less special, right? To know how intricate it is for them to do it, right? So we should take a step back and ask ourselves, what are the other explanations? So there's inference to the best explanation. It's here. It's the process of attempting to find a hypothesis that represents the simplest and most plausible explanation for a phenomenon. This is sometimes called abduction. Not that you're stealing a person, right? But just the thought process itself. So think about things like, did the magician do something I didn't notice? Or they prime me for a particular outcome, right? Will they distracting me on one side where something else is going on the other side, right? There's a lot of magic that is distraction, right? Just like these simple experiments, there's a lot of that was distraction, right? Here's cupcakes. People are gonna immediately be like, I want a cupcake, right? Or here's a map. People are gonna focus in on the map. We can then evaluate these hypotheses or speculations before accepting the truth of an unlikely event or outcome. We must also realize it may be necessary to gain more info before generating alternative explanations. And that is important too, that it is okay not to take stuff at face value, right? No matter who's telling you. I'm telling you, one of the other psych professors, one of your other professors and anything on campus, one of your coaches, one of your parents. It's okay not to take stuff at face value. It's okay to get out your little pocket Google machine, right? Or ask Siri and figure out, is that actually true, right? And sometimes stuff will be true and it's like, whoa, okay, right? But a lot of times you're like, nope, that was disproven. So scientists have long known that people are not good at multitasking, as I said. So we can minimize the chances of missing important info and reduce things like auto accidents if we focus on one task at a time. I think I mentioned in here previously that even if you're using a hands-free system to talk on the phone while you're driving, you're still not looking at the road as much as when you're not. It's like your eyes might be where you think you're looking at the road, but when we talk to people, we're kind of like, I don't know, right? As your eyes are kind of going everywhere. Also, the screens that they put into cars, right? So Tesla has like this one that's like this big, right? Even my Ford has one that's like this big, right? And those are supposed to be helpful because they put everything hands-free and you can talk to it and everything's at your fingertips. But it's also a distraction, right? It's also like you can poke around with it, and anytime you take your eyes off the road, you never know what could happen. I remember I was changing the radio once, looked up and went, shit, slammed on my brakes as hard as I could, rear-ended somebody. No damage because it was like 2 miles an hour when I finally hit them. But the person like freaked out and had to call the police, and the police got there and he was like, this is non-reportable. And I still would not like to have had that experience, right? So now I try to always focus on my driving. The other thing that we like as humans are patterns. We like things to make sense, to follow something that has a pattern, a prediction, right? And to see meaning in ambiguous or meaningless stimuli. This is one of the reasons people really like horoscopes and stuff like that, right? If you just take a horoscope at face value, it's really vague, right? You will have a good day today. What does that mean, right? But people can usually take something and apply it to their lives. So this is a fun little example video where it shows that we see faces in everyday objects. And other patterns, right? And I mean, clouds is kind of a cheat, if you ask me. Like, everybody kind of looked at clouds as a kid and was like, I see an elephant, I see a shark, right? But we love to see faces placed, right? It's just noodles. It's just noodles. And I'm not going to play the whole 12 minutes, but I can kind of skip ahead to some of the other ones here that are interesting. So, like, this tree looks like a person. Here you could look, the helicopter could look like it's eating people. The warplane looks happy. Actually, looking at, I'm almost positive this is at the Udvar Hersey extension of the Air and Space Museum. That's really interesting. Dog fates on this piece of wood. There's always the anecdote of people seeing Jesus in their toast or something, right? And this is all just down to humans like to find patterns in things, right? And this, if you keep going, you keep seeing all these different things, right? Maybe we see a skull in our ice cream, right? Or the water splash people are saying this looks like an elephant with the elephant. I don't even know if that one feels like a stretch to me, right? So, but we love to see patterns and we love to see faces and we love to see things that look cutesy, right? And part of it is just our brain is sort of wired to find faces. Like babies within their first couple weeks of development start focusing in on faces more than anything else, because that's how we learn language, that's how we learn emotions, things along those lines. So the anecdote here is to consider perspective taking, taking on views other than ours, imagining things from other people's point of view. This has a lot of different names. So sometimes this is called theory of mind. And sometimes it's just called like taking a walk in another person's shoes. Now, I am going to stop and kind of divert from your book a little bit here, because your book seems to imply this is easy for everybody, and it might be slightly easier for people from collectivist cultures. There are people who cannot do this well, or maybe not at all. So if you had to guess, people with like what diagnoses would struggle with this? Yeah, if you're on the autism spectrum, they really struggle with this. Even just little kids, part of their development, if you've taken any of the lifespan or child development courses, there's a part where kids are egocentric, and that doesn't mean they're narcissistic. It means they can only imagine things from their own point of view. And another one is schizophrenia. People with schizophrenia have a really hard time perspective taking, right? And so I want to sort of like put an inclusive caveat on this, that we can't expect everybody to be able to do this at all or equally well. And so it's part of this is empathy, right? And personal liking and understanding of different viewpoints. This is why, unfortunately, the best way still to get someone who's homophobic to understand the LGBTQ plus community is to introduce them to someone who's part of the LGBTQ plus community. Because like sometimes it takes like meeting a person to know that person, right? This is why politicians on both sides of the aisles will tell personal stories from their constituents, right? I had this Joe Schmo in this town tell me about how hard it was when the plant closed, right? They're trying to pull on that empathy string, put yourself in the shoes. It's also one of the things that's been most effective in trying to combat some of the shutdown on access to reproductive health care that we have, is women like the women in Texas telling their stories of how like their lives were risked. I believe one of the plaintiffs in that Texas case no longer have children because they waited so long to treat her and give her what is essentially an abortion for a no longer viable fetus, right? And sometimes you could show people all the data in the world, but helping them perspective take makes the difference, right? There are honestly politicians, again, on both sides of the aisle, who until something happens don't notice. So there is a Democratic representative, I don't remember, he's a representative or a senator from Maine, who has always been very pro-gun because me is very pro-gun because a lot of people pumped up there. And last week, he apologized after the mass shooting in his district and said, we need to have common sense gun control. And it's like wonderful that he did that, but also like shows you how much we've had, how many mass shootings just this year, much less since Columbine, right? And it took it happening in his district for him to really get it. And that's the struggle we're up against, is that sometimes people have a hard time putting themselves in each other's shoes. People from collectivist cultures. So these are cultures that typically are like East Asian, but also a lot of indigenous cultures, native cultures, where you think of yourself as not just yourself. You think of yourself in the context of how you're connected to everyone around you, that your sense of self includes not just you, but your family, your friends, your community, perhaps even the land you live on, are all part of your own identity. And so it makes sense that they would have an easier time empathizing because of part of their everyday experience. In the US, and especially a lot of Western European cultures, we see a more individualistic perspective. And so it can be harder for us to take that view, I think, especially in places like the US, where we have this idea, this mythology that anyone can succeed. You just have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And why are you in poverty when you can be a billionaire? And that's not realistic with the systems we have in place, right? Like, yeah, that happens sometimes, but like 1 in a billion, right? For every LeBron James, how many kids are there who are really good at basketball and never get discovered because they're only playing on the court in their neighborhood, right? So another thing that we need to think about is when data is presented to us, how many people are involved in that? Who are the people involved in that, right? So this is talking about samples and single cases. So one of the things you'll see people talk about is like the base rates or the baseline, which is the level of occurrence of a variable or event before or just in the absence of any kind of treatment or intervention. So what is the base rate? And it doesn't even have to be psychological. What's the base rate of HIV/AIDS before we make condoms more freely available, right? Or implement a needle sharing program, things along those lines. But obviously this could be psychological as well. What is the base rate of eating disorders among sorority members on a college campus before we introduce a body positive intervention? And this is actually one of the more successful prevention programs in my field. It's called the Body Project. The antidote here is don't base baselines on our own experiences, right? You will hear a lot of people say, that's not really a problem. I don't know anyone who has that problem, right? And this is for anything. This is people not believing that doctors can be unintentionally racist, right? People not believing that meth or opioids are a problem in their community, right? Doctors not believing that they're part of the problem by overprescribing, right? And so a lot of times, again, if we only focus on ourselves and our anecdotes and what we experience, we're missing a big wide world out there, right? I mean, I could say, there's no one out there who's not educated. Everyone I know is educated. And that would be like the least educated thing I could say, right? I know that's not true. I know that there are so many people who can't access school. Maybe they have to work from a young age, right, to help their family. You know, maybe transportation is an issue to get to school. Maybe they can't afford their books, right? Things along those lines. The false consensus effect is an overestimation of the degree to which others share your views or characteristics. And so this is the tendency to think, well, everybody's doing it. Why is it a problem if I'm doing this, right? I think this becomes a big issue in climate change, right? Oh, well, I just threw away my water bottle once instead of recycling it. No big deal. 7 billion people on the planet do that, right? That's a lot of accumulated plastic that won't break down over time. Right? I'm not trying to shame anybody. We've all done that, right? There's not a recycle bin around. I don't want to keep carrying this thing, right? But the idea of like, I'm gonna try, cocaine was big when I was in college. I don't know why cocaine suddenly became a big thing on my campus. But like everybody's doing cocaine, so I'm gonna try cocaine. There were probably more people not doing it than doing it, right? But like if your friend group, it makes me think of a client I had who had bulimia neurosis with the perfect. She told me that she and her entire friend group would go to the bathroom together after eating and all vomit. And she said, everyone I know has an eating disorder. And I mean, for her friend group, that was unfortunately true, right? And that can happen in high stakes situations, dancers, models, certain athletes. Representativeness is the extent to which a sample is similar to them in makeup to the population we hope to generalize to, right? I keep mentioning that we keep using college students, right? And like, y'all are awesome and wonderful and really are the future, right? You're gonna guide us to better places. I truly believe that. Undo some of this stuff that other generations did to my generation and your generation, right? But like, there are so many people out there who, again, can't access a college education, and so we can't just generalize from y'all outward, right? And we also collect a lot of data in those weird countries, right? Those Western industrialized, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean that that applies to people who live in the global south or to people who are not in an industrialized nation. There's also what's called a self-selected listener opinion poll. I love that this acronym is just slob. Right? This is unscientific, often conducted by broadcast media to register listener or viewer opinions. Often nowadays it's just texted in, right? Or you go online, you do a Twitter poll, right? And you can get some interesting data from this, but it's completely unscientific, right? It's only people who happen to be watching or listening to your particular piece of media when you advertise it. And so we want to be thinking about external validity always of researchers. We look at research in psychology and read research in psychology in other fields. How much can these findings be generalized to the larger population? And what is the larger population they can generalize to? If the sample is college students, you can only generalize that to other college students, right? If the sample is much more diverse, much more representative, now we're talking, right? So the biggest thing is just ask yourself, does this sample represent this population? And again, unfortunately, often due to resources, that answer is no, a lot of the time. All right, we'll stop there for today. And we'll keep going with this, and we'll do some review of APA citation and references on Wednesday. And for anyone who came in late who wants it, I do have exam 2. Okay, so under my door. Sweet. Okay, I'll try to get it back to you on Wednesday or Friday. I need this. Give you my signature. Yeah. Definitely translate. While you're doing that, I'm gonna, touch base over here. Hang on just a sec, let me sign off, so just in case it's anything personal, it's not on.